My earliest memory is of my mother coming in one morning to turn on the radio, which she did every morning to wake us up. I was 3 at the time. My older brother was going to school. He was 4. And this piece of music coming on the radio, and it remained with me. And it still remains with me. I was actually listening to it coming out of the bus this morning. There was something about it that affected me very deeply. And I was 3 at the time, it was about 12 or 13 years later that I was playing that piece of music in an orchestra. And I realised it was the scherzo from Beethoven's Symphony No. 7. You know. So that's where it started. And there was no music in my family as such. There was none of my parents, grandparents, anybody did music. And what happened with me is I got lucky. I went to a school in the inner city of Dublin, in Western Row, at the same time that a Christian brother came there who started doing music. We started on recorders. He had taught previously in Kerry, and one of his students was a guy named Robert Houlihan, who's the conductor now, who was in the army band in Dublin. So he brought him down, and he brought 2 of his friends, one of whom is James Kavanagh, who's in the Academy of Music here, and John Meehan, who's in the Conservatory of Music, the DID. And they started teaching a group of 8 and 9-year-olds trumpets, trombones, flutes, clarinets and percussion. And that's where I started, so it was completely accidental. If it's a specific commission for a specific group, then I like to connect the music in some way to the place or the people or something like that. And so, say in the last couple of years, I did a large scale work for Wexford County Council based on the Hook Peninsula. So it was associated with that. So it was very much programme music. And then last year I had a music which was commissioned with funding from the Arts Council for the group I conducted in Rathfarnham Concert Band, and that was more about people and place and emotions, you know. And I've just recently been awarded an Arts Council bursary that'll enable me to take time from what I do during the day to actually start properly on this first symphony that I'm writing. Now that's something that occurs to me as I walk the streets or in the parks, or I don't know how it happens sometimes that music comes into my head. You know, I don't have to sit down at the piano and go searching for it. It comes, and I know. And I kind of think that must be the way it is for everybody else, but maybe it's not. So from that point of view, the inspiration is always there, and if something comes in, I write it down. But usually if I hear it in my head, I don't forget it. I have a very good oral memory for things like Rathfarnham started with just 94 boys and 6 girls, you know, and has now grown to be probably the biggest, certainly the biggest independent wind band group probably in these islands anyway, well, probably in Europe.
Well, we use band as a singular, but of course there are 3 or 4 bands.
There are 3 or 4 bands, yeah, and they operate at the highest levels. And it's a system that I think is worth studying from an Irish point of view in terms of musical education, because it's a system that self-funds itself. It hasn't waited around for funding to come from central government. That's not to say it shouldn't be supported, all of these systems, but what I'm concerned about sometimes in music education, that people will want to wait till everything's in place before they start it, where the time is now.
The sense of ownership seems absolutely central
it's huge, yeah.
Its success.
Yeah, there are 2 key elements to it. One is good musical direction and organisation, and the second thing then is commitment from family, parents in other words, and they don't have to know anything about music, and then it being based in the community. So if you have something like Rathfarnham, then if you need, one of the reasons it can survive is that it can go out to the local community and look for sponsorship, because you've got the name and it's a flagship for not just itself but for the community in which it dwells. I can't wait around for people to come and sort of give me the opportunities that are out there. But you know, I'd love to be given a Horizon concert, you know, and I've applied for that. I'd love to be given a concert by the National Concert Hall themselves, their composer choice, and hopefully they'll come. But in the meantime, I'm not going to sit around and not promote my own music, and so I have a commitment to it, and I've proved it already. I have the organisational ability to do this. So I've gone and booked a concert hall in the main auditorium to do a concert on my music. And somewhat that helps me in that is that I can bring as a sort of a drop as as one of the key players in the group I work with in Rathfarnham. So already I have an ensemble that can, you know, perform many of the works that will be performed. But then I can also, and what I'm going to do is bring in others then to perform some of the chamber works in an orchestral setting. And I did a piece recently for a chamber choir, and they're also going to, so that's the Cantanda Chamber Choir. The Tommy Donnybrook piece is also down to be performed, and that's also a chamber work. But that's a piece I'm going to change. You talked earlier about the jazz influences in that, and I'm going to rearrange the first movement of that, which is the jazzy movement, for a big band type of effect, and then reduce it down for the other two movements I have. And then I will perform the hook piece in a new setting, because it's been set for brass band previous, and this time it'll be wind symphony with some of the orchestral instruments added in. It's something that I just have to do, because if I don't do it, the opportunities may not come otherwise, or I might be, and it also gives me an opportunity of conducting this stuff and conducting a lot of it, and, you know, having a bigger group of my works played together and having people view them in whatever way they want to.